So just to kind of review QuickSight at a high level, and then we'll go right into the new stuff. So QuickSight is a serverless BI application offered by AWS. There's no infrastructure for you guys to manage. We offer a pay for what you use type of pricing model. So as you share these reports out very broadly with either your customers or your internal users, you're only going to pay for when those users actually access the system. We launched embedding capabilities about 3 months ago at reInvent time. So lots of customer interest in terms of actually embedding QuickSight into your customer-facing applications. So I've been seeing a lot of activity in that area. But if you look at the one on the bottom left there, ML Insights. So this is something that we had launched in kind of a preview mode starting in November of last year, so right around reInvent time. And we've just released it generally available. So it's been GA about 2 weeks. On March 14th is when we released it. And I think that this general area kind of represents the part of QuickSight where we're doing the most innovation and really leapfrogging a lot of what others are doing in the industry. And generally, we're, our team and our customers really have a lot of excitement around what we're doing around machine learning. So there's kind of like 3 main things that come with the new ML Insights features, and we'll go into detail into all of these. At a high level, they are anomaly detection, forecasting, and the ability for QuickSight to generate natural language narratives on your data. Again, we'll dive into all these a little bit deeper in just a second, but just wanted to give us a quick intro on it first. So of the things we're going to review today, I'd say ML Insights is going to represent the bulk of it. There's a couple of other new things that were launched within the last month. The second one being the ability to schedule email reports, but have those be customized per user that you send them to. So QuickSight kind of had this functionality of being able to send email reports previously, and also had the concept of implementing row-level security, and we had this previously as well, but the two of them are now kind of integrated together such that you can now send out a blast of emails to your whole customer base or your internal user base, and each person would get a unique and customized email delivered to them. So that's the second big one, and then we've got a couple of improvements on some new calculations that we've added into QuickSight. So we'll do a quick review on some of the new functions that we've added. All right, so introducing ML Insights. So I mentioned these are kind of the 3 main features that we've added here. Generally, the idea is that we have integrated some algorithms that have been developed by Amazon over the years, and have integrated right into the product. So there's literally no configuration, there's no coding or scripting that you guys need to know. It's all kind of point and click, and a lot of it is completely automated. So it's just kind of these are kind of things that you wouldn't typically find in a BI tool, and typically you'd either have to be pretty proficient in scripting, or maybe they would exist in more like DevOps kind of monitoring type tools. But something that you can still apply to those DevOps use cases, but I think we've made it easy enough that you can apply to all of your business use cases as well. So let's dive into, actually just one more slide and then we'll dive into those. I did mention the email reports that get customized and delivered to each user. So I'll show you an example of what this looks like. But it's just, think of it as another way to consume reports from QuickSight. So if you have a dashboard set up maybe on a daily cadence, you receive an email, and then if something's high or low, then you want to go drill into it and log in and figure out what happened. This is a great way to kind of distribute those insights very broadly. All right, so diving into ML. So here are the 3 features that we've talked about already: anomaly detection, forecasting, and the auto narratives. First off, on anomaly detection. So basically the concept here is that you could hook QuickSight up to whatever kind of data set you want, anything that QuickSight supports today. A quick note that it can be either you can use direct connectivity to your data, or the data could be imported into Spice. So all this new ML functionality is not predicated on you have to have your data in Spice. All of this new stuff also works if you want to do direct connectivity too. So I could hook QuickSight up to whatever data set, like say I'm monitoring some data in Redshift, or I have some data in S3 that I'm using Athena to connect to. And I could point QuickSight at a certain set of metrics, and also ask it to slice those metrics by a certain set of dimensions, and then set some kind of schedule for QuickSight to periodically pull that data. So then we will run some built-in algorithms on that data on whatever kind of schedule you've asked us to, and try and tease out when we find certain anomalies in the data, basically. So here's an example of one where this is actually, a real example from some Amazon.com retail data on Prime Day, where we ran it on the retail data set, and we found, okay, in video games it was up 58% higher than expected on the day. So notifying you that there's an anomaly is one aspect of it, but I think even the more powerful aspect of this is being able to do contribution analysis on this. So if you notice on the left-hand side, there's a little bar chart over there, and what this is telling me is what were the biggest contributors, what was the biggest cause for that particular anomaly. So you can ask it to scan other fields in your data. It's basically doing like regression analysis on those other fields you've asked us to scan, and helping you determine what drove that anomaly up or what drove it down. Right. So once you receive alert from some tool, or once you find an anomaly in QuickSight, that's usually not the end of your analysis, right? That's usually kind of just the beginning of it. And now you need to go figure out why that happened. So this contribution analysis, in my opinion, I think is some of the most powerful aspects of this. So you can add these anomalies into your dashboard, and then, per user and per sets of filters that you've added, it will display those anomalies on your dashboard. There's also kind of pre-configured dashboards like I'm showing on the screen here, which show your anomalies kind of on a historical basis and allow you to do this further drill down into them. So there's a couple different ways to consume these in QuickSight, and I will show you both of these once we get to the demo as well. This is kind of the first big feature of the new ML Insights, which is anomaly detection. So of the 3 new features, this is the only one that carries some separate pricing along with it. The other 2 that I'm going to cover are included with Enterprise Edition, no extra charge. Anomaly detection, since QuickSight's kind of doing some additional work on your data, on a scheduled basis while nobody's even interacting with it, there's a new pricing model that's based on a per 1,000 metrics processed. So if you go to our website and you go to the pricing page, there's some really good examples there that walk through some certain business use cases to say, if I had 500 customers and I have 1,000 products, and I want to try and find anomalies amongst my customer base when, a certain particular product trend is taking off, or a particular customer is really active, what is that going to look like in terms of how many metrics I process in a month and those kind of things. So it'll help you kind of walk through in your own head, how do I calculate how many metrics I'm going to be processing. So onto the second one here. So forecasting. Forecasting may be a little bit more self-explanatory. It's basically if you have any kind of time series data and you're displaying that in a line chart in QuickSight, you can easily use a little pull-down menu and say I want to add a forecast to this. And again, this is algorithm driven. So what we mean by that is that it does a really good job at recognizing patterns in the data and representing seasonality. It also kind of does find sub patterns in the data. So if it recognizes, maybe on a yearly basis, there's a certain pattern, but even on a monthly or quarterly basis, there's this other pattern going on. So it automatically recognizes all of those really complex patterns in the data. If it does find anomalies across your historical data, it does not take those into account when computing the forecasted future values too. So, if you had a really big spike on one day for a particular, it was an outlier in your data, you don't have to worry about that actually being factored in and computing the future dates. So it recognizes those kind of things and learns as you add new data points and retrains the model. So this is all kind of unsupervised learning on the data. So in this example, really the orange part of this time trend that we see here is the forecast that QuickSight is projecting out. You see some different kind of shades on that line as well. So those are the confidence intervals that we're displaying. Those are configurable. So you can change, do I want to display 95%, 90% confidence intervals? And you can even do some what if analysis on these. So while QuickSight's going to project the forecast as it looks, today, you can make some adjustments to it and say, my target, maybe I want to change that from 25 billion to 30 billion for the end of the year. And I want to see, how does that affect what my forecast needs to be? And I can also kind of see the gap between where I'm at today and where I need to be to hit that new goal. So this what if analysis is kind of built into the new forecasting feature as well. All right, so the last one, and then we'll jump over to the demo here, but this last one might be my favorite out of the three, and it's called natural language narratives. So in this particular example, you see a lot of text boxes on this dashboard. You also notice that there's some color coding, some conditional formatting being built into these. But essentially all of the text that you see on this dashboard is dynamically generated by QuickSight at the time when that user goes to visit this report. So it's all completely dynamic. So what we mean by that is if I were to apply a filter to this, and maybe I want to filter to just a particular country or a certain customer segment, every number in here, all these text boxes you'll see are going to update based on the filters that I apply. Or if I have new data that's coming into the database and I go and reload this report, right, everything in here is going to change. So I'm just trying to point out it's not just like fixed text boxes where I've added some comments. This is all dynamically generated insights based on the data. So the way that I think about these is, I've been building dashboards for about 12 years in the BI industry. Pretty much every dashboard you build, there's some kind of KPIs that you're usually tracking. But if you're building a dashboard for somebody else, usually what are the KPIs they care about, but then what are the next 2 or 3 questions they're going to ask when they see something high or low on that KPI, right? So kind of going back to what we said before, when you see something high or low, it's usually not the end of your analysis, it's really the beginning of it usually. So if I know those next 2 or 3 questions that you're going to ask, rather than just giving you a KPI and maybe some raw data that you can drill into and hope that you find the insight you're looking for, I can kind of prescriptively design some of these to tell you, here's what that the KPI is now. Here's how much it changed from last week. Here's what it's forecasted to be next week. And then here's the top 3 or 4 things that actually drove that change. Right? So I can just hopefully shortcut a lot of those questions that I know inevitably you're going to ask when you see something interesting in the dashboard. So that's just a little bit about how I think about introducing these narratives. I find myself, instead of just putting KPI values on my dashboard, I'm using a lot more of these narratives instead. Anecdotally, internally within Amazon, we have to present kind of weekly reports to our management, and they prefer to see it in this kind of way. And traditionally, it kind of taken us, many hours a week to produce these reports. And we've kind of completely automated our weekly report process to using these narratives, which goes up to our management. So just a little story on how we're using it. So here's just a kind of a very quick walkthrough on how these get added to the dashboard. But again, I'll show you these in just a second here. But over on the left-hand side, we see some of the insights that are automatically generated by QuickSight. You can then click the little plus button and add them into the dashboards. the ones that you think would be interesting for the end users. And then, you can produce dashboards that look a little bit more like this, where we have the highlights on the top. I can still keep my KPI numbers, but I can maybe call out some interesting items from the data as well. All right. So enough with the slides. Let's actually go jump over to a demo of QuickSight here. All right, so here's an example dashboard. I'm viewing this dashboard as a reader type of user, so just kind of a consumer of QuickSight. So on the top here, you see some examples of the narratives that we've added in. These two right here are right out of the box, ones that just kind of will show up automatically as you start to build your visualizations, and these are a couple that I've added in. These other two are examples that I've just kind of customized a little bit, added a little bit more, some extra computations to them. You can even write them completely from scratch. Yeah. So I will show you how these get added as well, but first just kind of highlighting what does it look like from the end user perspective.
Yes, sir, you're talking about it. Okay, let me talk to her once she's in, and we'll share it.
So here we have an example of it's showing the forecasted values. So again, that orange part of my line there are the forecasted values that QuickSight is projecting out. So notice that it actually recognizes the pattern that I have, on a yearly and quarterly basis in this data very, very well. So what we'll do is let's go actually build one of these from scratch, and I'll show you how you can leverage this on your data. So what we'll do is we're going to start a new analysis, and we are going to use one of these data sets that I've got ready to go. So this data set happens to be imported into Spice. It's coming from a Redshift instance. But as I mentioned, that all of this new ML functionality works if you want to use direct connectivity as well. So fully functional. So let's just build, say I'm going to go take one of my metrics out here, and then I want to go see how that's broken up over time. So here I get just a little line chart based on my revenue data. If I want to summarize this weekly or monthly, I can roll this up. But as soon as I start to build this first visualization and I come over here to my insights panel, notice that it's already started to generate some insights based on this pretty simple visual that I have so far. So some of the things that it'll run are more like kind of summary statistics and some calculations like, where was my highest month, where was my lowest month, what was my most recent month-over-month change, compounded growth rates. But then you see a couple of these other ones are using the ML algorithms that we built into QuickSight as well. So these ones that have this little green ML-powered insight, these are algorithm-driven. So, and again, as you click on them, they'll kind of highlight where they're talking about in the visual. So here it found a particular anomaly where it was up 44% higher than expected compared to the previous month. So if any of these are interesting to you, you can add them into the dashboards. So this little plus button here, see that I can add them in. You can resize them and move them around just like you can with your visualizations. And then from here, you can leave them as is if they contain the kind of information that that you think would be helpful for your users. You can also customize them further. So, for instance, this forecast one, if I wanted to customize this narrative, you can open it up and see how QuickSight actually constructed it. So notice, parts of these are just some fixed text, and then other parts of them are variables from some computations that QuickSight's automatically included. So in this case, for the forecast insight, we're using our forecasting computation. And then these are kind of variables that you can insert into this text box to design whatever kind of insight you'd like. So just kind of a crude example here, but like if I wanted to say, compared to a goal of, and I could insert some field from the data here to be my goal field. But just to kind of point out, you can also do some like rich text formatting here, like say, I want my forecast number to be green, and I want to make it big and bold, right? Just a quick example of how you can kind of customize these from a look and feel perspective. On this one, you can do things like conditional formatting. So you can insert these if statements in here. So like here's an example of one where we're saying if that period over period value increased, then write the word increase by. If it decreased, write the word decrease by. But you could take it further and say if it increased, I want you to write increase but turn it green. And if it went down, write decrease and turn it red. So again, simple adjustment, but just to give you kind of a feel for how you can customize these. Just to kind of wrap up on these insights here, you can also write them from scratch if you wish. So just like you can add a visual, you can also add new insights from scratch. So here it'll kind of take you through a guided experience of how to create a brand new one. Here are the types of computations that you can include in the insights. So again, the forecast and the anomaly detection, those are algorithm powered. Other ones that are still very useful, I'd say, are like the top and bottom movers. If I want to see, especially if I want to see like what contributed to my big rise or my big fall since last month. Metric comparisons, compounded growth rates, lots of kind of insightful things you can add in here. Let's do an example of doing top movers. So it kind of gives me an idea of what that insight is going to look like. And then as you continue on here, the way that you now control what data is used in that insight is just how you design visuals. So you drag and drop the fields into these field wells just like you would to design a visualization too. So like for my top movers, if I wanted to see what were my biggest customer movers, I would add customers in. I want to do this using this date field, and I want to track movement in revenue and sales. Let's maybe do this at a monthly level. So you can see as soon as I go add those fields in, it's starting to populate that insight for me. So from moving from November to December, here were the top 3 customer movers. And as I go to apply filters, all these insights would change. If I have row level security applied, and maybe different customers when they log in, they see different data, or internally, maybe I'm only allowed to see me and my direct reports, and someone else sees just their data. Right? Whatever the row level security use case you have is, where people see different data, all of these insights are going to be customized to those users as well. All right, so the last type of insight you can add is the anomaly detection. So let's just do a quick example of that as well. So here I'm going to say that I want to configure an anomaly insight. We can see again what it's going to look like. Same thing, I can drag and drop my fields to design this. So like if I want to look for anomalies within industries, and again I want to use this time field by quantity of orders, let's say. So here I can say get started. It basically auto-populates all those fields that I've already added in here. If I had added more categories, like I said, let's do it on industry, but say I wanted to do a combination of industries and customers and cities and products, you can add more fields in there and tell QuickSight to analyze the combinations of all of them as well. So kind of what that does is, like, say I had an example of like customers and products in there. I could say, look for anomalies amongst my customer base, and then separately look for anomalies across all of my product lines. But if I check this box, it will look for all the combinations of those two as well. So look for anomalies of, were there any customers that bought particular products? And there was an anomaly in that particular month. So you can choose to analyze the combinations between them. I'm not going to do that right now just because when you run these, it's running on the raw data, so it takes a couple minutes to generate, so I'm just going to keep it simple for now. I can choose how many anomalies to display. I can choose how often I want it to run the algorithms on the data to go to detect the anomalies, so you can control the schedules here. And then this last part is the contribution analysis I was talking about earlier. So here is where you can have QuickSight scan other fields from the data to see what actually drove that anomaly up or down. So this, I think, is a really useful part of this. So I said, okay, I want to analyze and try and find anomalies in my industries, but once I find something, I want to know, was it certain customers that drove it? Was it certain products that drove it? Right, so I can choose some other fields that maybe contributed to it. So normally this would be placed on a schedule to run. I'm just going to click Run Now to trigger it the first time. Now, this might take a couple minutes to complete, but we'll come back here in a second. All right, so we've kind of reviewed some of the anomalies, or excuse me, the insights and anomaly detection. We touched a little bit on forecasting, whereas one of the insights that I added in here was using forecasting. You can actually display the forecast out here as well if you just use your little pull down menu on your time trend, and you'll see this option to say add forecast. So here you can control how many periods forward or periods backward do you want to display the forecast for. The prediction interval, which is going to be that shaded area of how confident you are in the forecasted values. Seasonality, I mentioned, is a big part of what makes this algorithm special, is that it can actually detect multiple kind of nested patterns of seasonality. So I recommend leaving it on automatic, but if you've got something very specific to your business where on a 50-day basis there's some particular event that causes seasonality, you can do custom, but I do recommend leaving it on automatic. And that's really it. So you hit apply. Now, as you can see here, I have my forecasted values out on the right. I think it's kind of neat to run these backwards as well. So what this is kind of doing is ignoring these previous months of data had existed, and just using that last point to say, if we had forecasted this from September forward, what did we think the values were going to be? And then I can kind of compare them to what the actual values were. So for me, it just kind of gives me some more confidence in that I actually want to trust this thing. All right, and then the what if analysis. Oops. Okay, I'll show that in a second. Just to address this, so this came back, my anomaly detection found an anomaly the day after Christmas where communications was higher than expected. It was we expected it to be about 48, and it was way higher than that. So here's a particular anomaly that it found. If you choose to explore anomalies, then this brings you to that pre-configured dashboard that I talked about, which shows historically what the values were, shows the anomaly that we found, but then also starts to show that contribution analysis. So if you remember, I said, when you find an anomaly, I want you to also split it by customers and products. So that's in fact what it did. So if you remember, the anomaly it found was in communications. So it makes sense that these are the two customers, Comcast and Sprint, that drove that. Particularly Comcast was the major one that drove it. From a product perspective, this is the biggest, contributor. As I hover over these, I get some more kind of natural language insights on them too. But essentially, here's kind of where your area where you can drill down further into them and also review them historically. Just a quick note, this is all fake data, so although you see like some customer names that you might recognize here, this is all fictitious data. So with the contribution analysis, you can even take it further. So like if I find one of these categories that really contributed the most, I could split it again. So I could say, all right, by customer, who were the buyers within that customer, or what products did they buy? Right, so in this case, it was just one particular one. Or I could split it by city, for instance, to mostly driven by Huntsville, right? So once you find something, you can continue to drill further and further into it and really pinpoint exactly why something happened. So again, I think this contribution analysis is a huge aspect to it and a very, very powerful aspect to it. So I showed you how you can trigger that contribution analysis from the anomaly that's displayed out here itself, where you say explore anomalies. You can do it from other visuals like the time trends. Like say this spike here, if I want to go drill into why that spike happened, you can trigger it from any time trend too. So here I can say analyze contributions again. Here I'm doing that same thing where I'm just going to pick other fields that I want to see if they had an effect. Like was it certain cities, across these certain sets of fields. Click analyze. We're doing the regression analysis behind the scenes. Here we can see San Antonio and Houston were the big drivers. This particular customer, these products, right? Same kind of concepts. Say, okay, in San Antonio, who were the customers in San Antonio? So it was mostly these two. Okay, so again, this concept of just kind of drilling further into it. All right, so from an ML standpoint, we've covered the three major things here, which were anomaly detection, the forecasting, and also these natural language insights. So just to kind of bring this full circle, the last step here is that I would choose to go publish this out as a dashboard. Give it a name. Share it with some other users in my account. So these can either be individual users or they can be groups of users. So I've configured some groups here in my account. So I say I want to go share this with my sales management. Once I click share, it'll show up for them as something that they have access to when they go log into QuickSight. They can also receive an email notification if you want them to. But yeah, all those same narratives that we designed here. I did not include any filters on this example, but if I had included some filters on the top for users to play with, all these numbers would update as they use those filters. But yeah, all that same information is here for me as a reader user as well. All right, so that kind of concludes the biggest new set of functionality, which is the ML Insights. If you want to learn a little bit more, I recommend a blog post that we released on March 14th. So this kind of reviews a little bit of what we talked about. Has a nice kind of demo review video. Some great customer examples of some of our customers who are already leveraging this. But also has a really nice walkthrough of like how you can actually try this. It actually has some sample data you can try it with. So it's a great kind of step-by-step walkthrough to get you familiar with it. And then so you can learn about how you can apply it to your own data sets too. So highly recommend checking out this blog post. Has some very detailed walkthroughs of all the new functionality. Okay, so now to move on to our next topic, which is the integration between our email reporting and our row level security. So just to kind of review the email reporting first. So here I have a particular dashboard. If I then wanted to distribute this to those managers that I chose to share it with, if I want to, deliver this via an email, once I have a dashboard, I can click share and say email report here. So now I can choose how often I want this email to be delivered. Maybe I could do it daily, at 8 in the morning, or if you want it makes more sense to do like Mondays, you could do daily, weekly kind of schedules. You can control some aspects of the email itself, like what should the title of the report be. I could change the subject line, add some additional text in the body if I wish. And then lastly, who should get access to it. If I know my users are going to primarily see these on mobile devices, I can configure the embedded image that gets sent in the email to be more mobile optimized. So you get some options around that as well. But basically here I'm just configuring who should it get sent to and how often do I want to send it. Those are the major kind of things. So what this kind of looks like is, here's just an example of one of the email reports that I triggered to get sent to myself. So the part that's new about this is now if you have configured road level security on this report where everybody should see certain data, like from certain customers or certain cities, or just like their own data from an employee reporting kind of standpoint, the email reports that they receive will also be customized just to them. So if I go to visit one of my other dashboards here, so in this particular example, it's configured for my user that I'm logged in right now to see all 3 of the customer segments. But when I log in as somebody else, they're only going to see just one of those. Let me try a slightly different one. Okay. So if, again, as you notice, based on the row level security I've applied, I see all 3 of these segments. And in my other browser here, I've logged in as a different user called Sue. And notice that Sue only sees one of these segments. And just to confirm, this is the exact same dashboard. So like if I copy this URL from this browser and then go open it in Firefox, and just to kind of confirm it's the exact same browser, but I'm just logged in as a different user, and then that's why I see the different data here. So when I configure this to be delivered as an email, Sue is only going to see this slice of data when she gets the email. So that's really the concept here. For those of you who don't know much about how row level security is configured in QuickSight, just a quick review on that. There's a really good video up on our website. If you go to our product videos, there's about a 10-minute video on how to do row level security. But just at a very brief overview, like if you notice when I go to my data sets here, this one that has this little restricted icon on it says that this has row level security applied to it. And how that works is once you click on one of your data sets that actually contains your real data, you would click on this permissions button, and then you would go browse to another data set which contains the user security rules, the mappings of when this user logs in, or if someone from this group logs in, then only show them these values of data. So in this case, I've already applied this data set called RLS groups. So you can do this on a group level or an individual level. This row level security data set could be stored wherever you want it to be, as long as QuickSight can connect to it. So like it could be a table in Redshift, it could be a file in S3, It could be a table in your SQL Server, right? Whatever, wherever it makes sense for you to store this mapping of user A logs in, they should see the West. Then you create a separate data set in QuickSight that connects to that, and then you essentially apply it to your actual data sets. And then whenever a user goes to visit that report, or whenever we go email that report to them, we are applying those where clauses and applying those filters so they only see the data they're supposed to. Then anything I create that uses that data set also has that little lock icon to indicate that it has row level security applied, and then you know, automatically all those filters will be applied. All right, so the last pretty quick topic that we'll cover are some new calculations that we've added recently. So I've got an example here. We've added custom window functions. So these are kind of part of a broader set of functions called table calculations. So table calculations can kind of do mathematical calculations across multiple values that are displayed in your visualization. So in this example, we're doing something like a moving average. So I have two lines in this line chart here. The blue one are the actual values at a monthly level, and the orange ones are a moving average. So here I've configured it to average that point and the previous 3 points of data, so that I can kind of smooth my line out and smooth out any kind of, you know, daily or monthly outliers that I might have. So by being a table calculation, it means that this data point can access and use other data points from this visual in its own kind of computation. That's kind of the concept behind it. But the function we're actually using here is called window average. The window average function itself, we actually had added back like closer to last summer. The parts that are new here are that you can set kind of custom amount of periods to compute that window over. So previously, like all these window functions, window average, window sum, they would basically use the entire window, and then either do the average across all those values or the sum across all those values. And you couldn't really control, like if you just wanted to average just the last 3 values instead of all of them in the whole time trend. So these two new kind of variables that you can use in this function, the start index and the end index, this is the new part that we just added in the last month. So here, just to break this down a little bit, so I try and put these on some different lines so it's a little easier to read. So the first thing is, what is the value I actually want to do this computation for? So I'm doing it on my sales number. The next one is, what is the field you want me to kind of traverse as I go to average these numbers? So in this case, it's my field called date parameter driven. And then the next two things are the start index and the end index. So I had this as a hard-coded number before. I had the number 3 here before to say I want to average the previous 3 months. But it took it a step further and actually switched this out to be a parameter so that my end users can actually go change that value. We kind of also did that in this date field to allow them to change the date granularity. So if they want to look at a monthly level or a weekly level or a daily level, that's why I have this field called date parameter driven here. So combining a couple concepts of being able to use parameters in your calculations, but also looking at one of these new, the new window functions too. So how this kind of manifests is I have one parameter that's actually driving the granularity of my time trend here. So if I change it to week, notice I get a lot more spikiness here. And then I have a separate parameter which is choosing how many periods do I want to average? This is controlling that start index. So if I want to do like a 12-week moving average, if I change that number to 12, we'll see my orange line gets a lot smoother because it's averaging more points before it. So that's the general concept of what we added to the new functions. There's actually a brand new function that was added, which is percentile over. It's a similar concept, like if I want to do a percentile across a number of points that I'm plotting in my visual, it acts as another kind of the window functions. But yeah, all of these window functions have some sort of relative number of periods that you can control, of like how much of the window do you actually want to include in this calculation. If you want to learn more about these, so first off, if you hover over one of them and you go click on the function name itself, it'll bring you to our help page, which shows you a lot more detail on like what does the syntax of this look like. Also has some examples of how the function should be written, what is a result of this function when I use it. So if you're a little confused about my explanation of it, this hopefully should do a lot better job of showing you and walking you step by step. So recommend checking that out. One last thing to highlight is that we've added this what's new section into our help. So here we will always update this as we release new features. Sometimes 2 times a month, sometimes once a month, or that's kind of like our release cadence. It's usually between 2 and 4 weeks. But as we release new functionality, you can always find a little summary of what that new functionality is, and then it always kind of links you to some more documentation if you want to learn some more. So I think really helpful for you guys moving forward. You know, we try and keep a pretty rapid pace of innovation going here on the QuickSight team, but we know it's sometimes hard to keep up with all the new features. So hopefully this can be a nice review for you guys to learn about what we're adding to the product. There is one more piece of this that is also another way for you to learn about new features. You may have noticed if you've logged into QuickSight in the last couple of weeks, when you logged in, we showed kind of a pop-up window and explained some of the features that were new and kind of notified you there was new stuff there to try. So that's another kind of feature that we added directly into QuickSight itself to more proactively notify you of, hey, here's some cool new stuff that you guys can check out. So it guys kind of goes hand in hand with this what's new page. You know, we're showing them in the product as a pop-up, but if you want to go review them at any time, just search for QuickSight what's new and you'll find this page.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. It was a great session. We're going to open it up to Q&A for the remainder of the time. We got about 7 minutes, so if you have any questions that you would like answered that you think would be helpful with us being able to show a little bit of a demo while we answer the question, feel free to move the window. Jesse, there is one question asking if we can go a little bit more in depth on customizing the templates in the auto narrative formulas.
Yes. So in the auto narrative formulas, again, I recommend checking out this blog post. It has a really good walkthrough on like how to actually make some customizations in here. I'll try and give you a quick little example here. Let's see. So say in this one, like I have a forecasted value for February. If I wanted to add another forecasted value that was maybe 12 months out instead of, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 months out. So you can add additional computations in here. Like this is the computation for that forecast, but you can also click add computation. So you're going to choose what type of computation you want to add. Like I could go add another forecast if I wanted. here is how you configure some of the aspects of that. So you give it a name. You know, if you're going to add multiple forecasts, I recommend naming it differently. So like this one, I could say 12 month, just so you can tell them apart. It already has the fields that I want to use, but then here's where I'm going to control. So how many periods forward do you actually want to forecast it? So I could change this to 12. You can control the prediction interval, you know, again, kind of stuff that you would do in the when we were adding the forecast before, but I'm going to leave that as is, really just controlling how many values forward do I want to actually display. So once I add that computation, then it's kind of available to me. Oops, didn't like my hyphen, that's okay. So now this is kind of available to me as another computation that I can go add into my template here. So like if I wanted to go say, 12 months from now, the forecasted value is going to be, all right, and then I could go, you know, you can kind of explore this, the different values in here. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, most of them, but like the metric value is going to be more about the numbers of that metric, like the actual forecast. This one has going to be information about the time field, like the name of your time field or time granularity in my case would be month. You know, so each one of these are going to have kind of different descriptive things about aspects of this calculation. But metric value, I've got like the actual value, the formatted value, which would be like if I did a currency or something, or absolute values are sometimes nice if you want to show like differences. Sometimes you want to do the absolute value. But in my case, usually you're going to use the formatted value. So if you just click on it, it'll go insert it out here. You know, you could do whatever kind of customization on it as you want. Like just for demo purposes, you can make it bigger. You could make it a different color if you want. But that's a little bit of the concepts here. You can write whatever text you want. Then you can kind of go insert variables from any computations that you've added. So here's this extra part that we just added. I had some fixed text, and then here was just that new, the value that I'm saying for a year from now.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. So as we're closing in on the top of the hour, again, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for taking the time out for joining us this morning. We will be sending out a recording of this webinar and posting it online. As Jesse pointed out, we do have that new section in the resources site for QuickSight where we will continually post what's new features, and we'll also be posting links to these recordings so you can go back and find them later if you want to get deeper in on any of these features. So with that, again, the recording will be sent out within the next couple of days to all the attendees, and we'll have that posted up on the website as well. Again, thanks for everyone joining us. Jesse, thank you for taking the time to this morning. And remember, this is a recurring webinar, so we do these monthly as an open session for all QuickSight customers to attend and get a deep dive on all the new features and functionality that we launch on a monthly basis. So look forward to talking to you next time. Everyone, please enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.